yours, and I'm like that because I'm going through a decent system.
Uh-huh.
But I never pressed this button. You have to press all this shit. You know, I would have thought everything would work unless you didn't want it, and then you
Yeah.
press some shit.
Yeah. It's crazy how that shit
So anyway,
works.
how's your week been?
Yeah, good. How was your Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Oh, we don't have Thanksgiving.
In UK they don't have Thanksgiving.
No.
Yeah, they have it here, but it depends who wants to celebrate it. But it's Thanksgiving for me every day. So it
Oh
was just,
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what's crazy? How they say it's like um it should be like that every day, but then some people you ask them how was your Thanksgiving, they're like, oh, it's just another day. And then I'm like, well, how is every day for you? Is it dull, boring, or is it every day like Thanksgiving? Where so normally somebody would say, oh, it feels like the like the traditional holidays are, you know?
Yeah. Well, the sad thing is that, the vast majority of people, they need to have a very close call before they get out of bed each morning, grateful for each and every day.
Yeah,
If they have a near death, or, if they get diagnosed with something and then, they're cured or something, oh my God, every day is beautiful, but it needs that. I
yeah,
mean, that to me just smacks of complete naivety and ignorance.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I don't get it why I feel every day. And you
Right.
ask people, this dude just down below me is not 75. Said, yeah, beautiful morning. I said, how are you doing? Well, you just get on with it, don't you?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, it's,
Or
it's,
like
it's, it's
like when some people say, "Oh yeah, it's going, it's going." I'm like, well, I don't know how it's going for you. I know how it's going for me. What do you mean it's going? I mean, yeah,
yeah,
everything's going, but you got your going, I got my going. I'm saying, how are you
yeah,
going? How's it going?
yeah, just filled with joys and everything like that.
Yeah,
Okay, so shall we hit record then? How much you got? You got an hour and a half or
I
something?
got, I got as much as possible, but you already know how it is. If you want to stop, hey, like let's say we're on a good flow, we can actually hit stop and then go again. You get what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
had such a bad time with the other one. I haven't had time to like do chop because I want to get like pieces out of our old one, but
right.
it'll work out. I'll figure it out so I can get good parts and then just make shorts out of it and whatnot. But this one
Yeah.
we could just chop it up. Like we could stop and then play again. I mean, whatever. It's up to you. But I don't, I'm not. Listen. I run my time, bro. I'm in charge of
Yeah.
my time. I'm Father Time actually. You call me Father Chronos. you know,
Father Kronos.
Father
Right.
Chronos,
Yeah.
bro.
The way I see it, if people haven't got time to watch a 3-hour video, then they'll watch 20 minutes, half an hour, and come back to it.
That's right. That's right.
I don't. I've given up being people's mother a long, long time ago,
Yeah.
and so whatever it is. And I really don't care if anybody watches my videos.
Hmm.
And this is why I'm quite obnoxious and belligerent,
Yeah.
and I'm looking for trouble a lot of the time because I just want to stir it up. I get
Ah,
bored of it. I get the bored of,
it
stimuli.
is quite entertaining though. I'll tell you that much, man. It's very entertaining. You know what's funny though? Um, I don't know, for some reason I feel like that whole people, how people talk about shadow banning and whatnot. I feel like that's a real thing because
Yeah.
I did that. I tried this out already. Or I don't know if YouTube like puts it out whenever they feel like it. But if I put out a video, it won't come out on the notifications until like let's say 30 minutes later. And I'm like, I put this up 30 minutes ago. Why is it showing up on somebody's notification feed now? But then because I went on my girl's YouTube to see just to check, and my notification didn't come up. I was like, interesting how that is, huh? It's like they
Yeah.
control what they want put out, what they when they want it put out, or how many views you should be getting. It's very interesting how that works. I didn't think it was a real thing until I was very
Yeah.
aware of it now.
Well, lots of people tell me that they're not getting notifications,
Oh,
and
for yours too. I think I told you that one time. I didn't get
yeah,
notified for a couple of your videos.
I think that whenever you've had a ban, and of course I've had like 4 channels taken down, and so I'm a marked man. And
Hmm.
even though they allow me to come back, I just change the number, change the number,
Uh-huh.
and a different email, and most of the time it's not even a different email. I
Yeah.
just change the number, and then
Yeah.
the system allows me back on. So they're not stupid, they're very high tech, and they can
Right.
prevent that if they wanted to,
Hmm.
but they allow me on, but the shadow ban. So I know that the vast majority of people that find me are the ones that seek They're the ones that type in "Awake and Brave, is he back?" Other than that, my videos don't get out there.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting how that works. I don't know. I thought it was
Yeah,
just some people making it up, but it actually is a real thing. You know,
yeah,
just
yeah.
basically
Well, I tell
observing
you what.
it.
Here's the thing, right? Some guy contacted me in the comments, and it was the first time that he'd watched any of my videos. Now, he'd been out on set making a film of what's called a dolmen. It's kind of like a prehistoric stone house,
Yeah.
basically with stone walls and a stone lid on the top. And he was filming, but he was in kind of like some sort of character. And he reckoned he had beard like mine, hair like mine, one tooth missing in the front here, and he was wearing this flat cap like I
Uh huh.
wear when I'm out.
Uh huh.
And he said, "I don't know what's going on, man. Whether Google have seen this in the film that's on YouTube, and then they've um, directed me towards someone that looks like me." And
Wow.
I'm like, there's a lot of very weird stuff that goes on in the cosmos and on YouTube,
Yeah.
and you look at it and you think like, well, I am pretty sure that all this profiling, they are marrying us up with videos that we might like, people that we might like, subjects that we might like, and so why not, even if we look the same, because they're doing facial recognition.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
This guy looks like you. You might want to watch his videos.
Yeah.
And so they sent him the suggestion. He'd never watched any of my videos
Uh huh.
before.
Yeah.
Why would that come up in his feed?
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you want to hit record now, I mean, we could just basically start. Is like I said, I'm sure there's a lot to talk about. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of stuff that uh we talked about before, stuff that we wish we could have covered, but there wasn't enough time. So I'll let you guide and see where you wanna, what territories you want to
Oh,
touch and whatnot.
I'll leave it open to you because
Uh
I've just finished editing chapter 10.
huh.
Chapter 9 was about the God and about faith and belief and how that works through human psychology. That was like 28 pages long, and that was a very taxing chapter to try to convey that. And so, yeah, just hit me up on whatever you want to talk about, and I'll do my best to make myself plain.
Yeah.
So,
Um.
right, then, let's record on this. Oh, I've got to. Oh, yeah, that's it. Click on that. Start recording. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go.
ZigZag Zilla in the room.
That's right.
How you
Back
doing,
at it
bud?
again, man. Good. I'm good. Good to see you,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah. Well, you see, when I look at you, I just see a smiling, very happy and content. Hang on, my microphone's not. I've just got to. Right now, I think I'm recording. Oh,
Okay.
good job! I caught that. Yeah, when I see you, I just see a smiling, happy, healthy-looking, contented person with his lot and his life. And
Mhm.
I'm like, we were just saying, weren't we?
Yeah.
Why is it that when you ask people, so many people, how you do? Oh, all right. Oh, you just do it, don't you? I don't get it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Absolutely,
it
man.
I don't know what I think I like I say, they need to have the bar of their expectations low,
Mhm.
because if their expectation is, "Oh, I've not got all this, not got the best girl, not got the best, I need a bigger house." Well, what about you still got both your legs, you still got both your arms, you still got 10 fingers, and you're compos mentis, you're healthy and this, that, and the other, and what about that then? Because any one of those taken away, you'll know about it,
Right.
and then you'll be crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all right. I mean, we can pretty much get into. There's a couple of topics I wanted to talk about, like basically like cells and again, there's so much more to cover on like consciousness and God and whatnot. Uh, just perspective, reality, and I know that you once sent me a video on the simulation theory. Um, why do you fall more into that category of like the simulation theory? Because I would like to cover into that area and what my thoughts on that basically are.
More than what?
So,
I don't necessarily lean towards that.
mhm. Well, I mean, you sent me a video on Billy Carson, how he's on. Remember, I was asking you about conscious and sentience and how you see things, and basically, you sent me a video to kind of correlate or equate to where your ideas of like reality are. And you sent me a video on Billy
Yes,
Carson on the simulation theory. Now, Billy Carson is actually somebody who pushes a lot on how to succeed in this matrix, like being a billionaire and whatnot. And that's something that you and I kind of like
right,
didn't really see eye to eye with that. When I look at reality here, I see a lot of how this system works. You know, when we say as above, so below, as within, so without. This is basically a copy of what actually occurs, let's say, in the astral realm from my perspective. You get what I'm saying? From how I've seen the
right.
mental realm works. Because I also mentioned that when you go deeper, things don't really look how they look here or how we're programmed to think they look. Like fire to me doesn't look like fire. You know what I'm saying? Electricity doesn't look like electricity anymore. People just look distorted. Everything just kind of looks ugly. It doesn't look uh, how you would look at it here. And I guess that's where we start to get into the realm of like the formless, and it doesn't look beautiful anymore because there's no longer a programmed shape to what we say beauty is. You know what I'm saying? But in a deeper way, we look at beauty here subjectively, where it might be beautiful to you, but not beautiful to me. So we say beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You get what I'm trying to say? So I want to go into
Yeah.
different areas of thought when it comes into that, and how we could tie all that and equate that together and basically see how I see it, and then you tell me how you see it, and see where we meet on that.
Yeah, so I was thinking that Billy Carson thing because he was reiterating, what I was saying, in that there is there's some level of contrivance going on here, and you could call it a simulation, you can call it a hologram, you can call it some sort of fabrication from some higher entity. And then when we start to look at what we are, we discover that there isn't an actual fact anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like being sentient in The Sims, because if the Sim characters tried to look for what they were, then all they'd find was binary, and that's all we find. And that's all Neil deGrasse Tyson and Simon Gates, theoretical physicist, and lots of other people. That's what they say. The
Mm-hmm.
universe is binary. It's code. And
Mm-hmm.
Tyson's got what are you telling me that the universe is written in the same code we use in our computers? And Simon Gates goes, yes, it's
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same code.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it like that, coupled with that quantum physicists say that there is no material matter here, and then you got all of these hypotheses of simulation and hologram and all this. Look, there's no smoke without fire. And so because we know there is no reality, then I think just to keep open about something else is very reasonable. And so there's been so many things in my life that have just kind of like been bizarre, and you just look up it's kind of like in the Truman Show. You look up and you know that someone's watching you, and you
Mm-hmm.
know that some stuff's going down. And so yeah, that's kind of like where I'm coming from on all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
So, like in that instance, let's say if this reality isn't real, then what is the information that we gather here? What does it matter overall? And if, let's say, if reality, let's say, isn't real, we can consider everybody else, automatons. Uh, do you consider yourself an automaton, or what is your definition of an automaton or an NPC and whatnot, and just programs and concrete reality? Do you hold the information that you have as concrete reality, and is it something that's valuable to you?
Well, I'm an adherent that there's nothing in existence here, and we're all being dreamt in the mind of God.
Mhm.
So there is no knowledge as such, but there is an operating system within this matrix thing. You see, they're speaking now about creating sentience in the sim characters.
Yeah.
So if the sim characters have a level of consciousness, if they started to look at themselves, I'm pretty sure, they'd see something like what we do. The only difference is in the Sims. They're in flat world. It's two dimensional at this moment in time. But I'm sure they can make it in three dimension.
Hmm.
And so you know um, I don't believe that anything is real.
Hmm.
I think that there is an essence to what we are, and that's spirit. And my angle or handle on spirit is I use the analogy of like a mirror. And let's say God is a mirror, and God was sick and tired of maybe staring himself at the mirror if he could do that, and so he decides to break the mirror into like gazillion shards, and each one of these shards have their own perspective now. That whatever reflection they get, it's unique to them, but the shards all pertain to the mirror.
Hmm.
And let's just say one day the mirror's going to come back together, and then God will be united with Himself. Now, this is very in keeping with Kabbalah, because Jewish Kabbalah have something called sparks, which they gather whilst they're here. And when you read about what these sparks are, it's very long, it's very convoluted, it's very mythological, and it's difficult to get your head round, because there's all these beings in the beginning did this and decided to do that and then created this and then that happened. But ultimately, what the Jewish Kabbalah sparks are is that in our lives we have like a Pac-Man game, and we are gathering up these sparks, and we get these sparks which are very meaningful, poignant times in our life. They can come about in abject poverty or terror or sickness. They can come about with the greatest of joy, and this and the other. We never know when they're going to come about, but we've got to gather them all up.
Hmm.
And once we've gathered them all up, then we are whole and we can go back again. And
Yeah.
so that seems very much like the broken mirror thing. And so the thing is about, I am absolutely convinced with my intuitive level about this thing, because when I think ideas up and then I hear or read about somebody else having these ideas hundreds or thousands of years ago, I go, exactly. Where did it come from? It come from the Akasha. It come from the ether. It come from all the information within this computer, within the simulation, with whatever. We are transceivers and transmitters, and how did Einstein come up with that stuff? How did Newton come up with that stuff? And how does Beethoven? How did he come up with this stuff? They all you used to say, like Michelangelo. I don't know. It's just divine inspiration, and I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
And then when I'm making my rants, and I'm saying, look, you've got muggles, you've got muppets, you've got automaton, you've got drones, you've got partially spirited people, highly spirited people. You've got all these varying degrees of the human being. There is no one definitive human being. We are very, very different from one another. How we perceive the world, how we act in the world, our intelligence levels, and I swear that the vast majority of people are like what Dolores Cannon says. They're backdrop people. They're just extras in the spiritual people's movies. And I can't see no evidence for that being wrong. Because in my videos over 14 years, I've labored and labored and labored and labored, and I can't penetrate. You know, if they are awoken, they're awoken. And that's just it. We're born awoken. We're a different variety. We are spirited human beings. And, in the Bible, Jesus says, let the dead bury the dead. Because he knew it was absolutely wasting his time and the time of the apostles to start preaching to the spiritually dead. They don't have the wherewithal. They're in a different, concentric circle of consciousness. You can't penetrate these people. And this is why I'm always having a go at Christians,
Yeah.
because they are the dullest of the dull. They're absolutely riddled in dogma. That they don't the spirit, and it's laughable.
Yeah.
They They think they're the most spiritual and the most religious, but they're the most dumb and the most indoctrinated
Mhm.
and myopic in mind. And it's just a joke.
Yeah.
And then, I have a go at them. I rile them a little bit. And then you start them off with all the hate and the
Right.
judgment. And I'm going, look, you've just blown the first commandment of Jesus, judge not.
Yeah. 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 Well, I mean, I
Oh my
ask
God.
all this. I'm sorry. Are you done? I didn't want to cut you
Yeah,
off.
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I ask all this because I of course I read your book, but I also have questions that I want to kind of see where it tunnels into because the way I see my reality, for example, there's going to be different people with different of intelligence. And before I even jump into that topic, I want to know what your definition of intelligence is because you said levels of intelligence. And what do you how do you put that in like a simplest term as far as what intelligence is?
Hmm. Well, I mean, like all things, it's very, very varied.
Mhm.
Now, we have, let's say, like a logic intelligence of a mathematician or
Mhm.
scientist, um, somebody like that, someone whose mind works very clearly with induction and deduction.
Mhm.
Therefore, they can work a problem forward to see the outcome. They can work a problem backwards to see where the problem derived.
Mhm.
So they use these powers on a linear trajectory, and so that's one level of intelligence. Then you've got another level of intelligence, which is um, imaginative, where art and music comes from, which is an innate thing because as far as I can see, all these people that have been brilliant in these realms, they've just been natural. McCartney and Lennon, they couldn't even read music or nothing like that, but they just had an ear for it and they just had a flair, like they'd been, reincarnated, millions of times, musicians, and finally it all come together in this level of genius. And I often state that McCartney and Lennon on their own, they wouldn't have been anything too phenomenal. But when they came together and then they put their genius together, that's where the whole world
Mhm.
shook. And so that then there's another level of intelligence, which is intuition. Intuitively, this is where most of my intelligence comes from. It's a level of I just know it.
Mhm.
And then what I've done over the years is via my experience and via my gathering up of information through an enormous amount of reading, then it's kind of like, that's it. He says this here, he says that there, and all these sort of
Mhm.
things. And then with my experiences, when I had this DMT trip where one day I'm on the beach and I see God or a bearded man, let's just say, in the clouds, absolutely as clear as day. He was there for 15 minutes. He looked like Socrates with a beard and the hair, super content, just gazing out over the whole world, not looking at anything in particular. And I'm like, well, where does that come from? What happens there? And you see, I've had experiences like that by just breathing. And when we do this Wim Hof type breathing, we can have these DMT esque visions. And I had a very similar thing with a bearded man in the clouds just from hyperventilating on the beach. And so, as soon as our consciousness just slips a little bit to one side or the other, we go into different. And so there's so many different dimensions, but I believe that if we're more versatile with our intelligence, with our spirit, or whatever it is that makes up each particular human being, whatever we tap into, then because I've been tapping into all this stuff, and like I say, that Jesus spoke to me, God spoke to me. I've been to hell and I've had angels speak to me and all these sort of things. And I'm like, why me? I wasn't religious,
Mhm.
and I'm not religious and I never will be religious.
Yeah.
I'm spiritual.
Mhm.
But so why do I have those experiences? Well, it could just be that I've got a big mouth and I can string a few sentences together and make it moderately interesting for people to listen to. So there seems there's a purpose behind the universe using people. And so I say, the universe is using you. It's using these bodies. It's created these bodies to experience itself. And I believe it's created all living things to
Mhm.
experience itself.
Very well put. So here's my there's a reason why I actually got into the topic of intelligence, because just looking at everything, just overall, I can see nature. There's a form of intelligence there, and I can look at that as an artificial intelligence of the system, right? Like what makes a sunflower turn toward the sun? You get what I'm saying? All these things that sometimes we look at and wow, you know, we got people saying that plants aren't sentient. Plants, they don't have a nervous system. They don't have a brain or a heart. But we could just discard that it's life. And because I made a video and I spoke about what is life. You know what I'm saying? Because the main
Yeah.
question is, what is the purpose of us being here? You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
What is the purpose to life? And then I asked, well, what is life? What is life in general? You know what I'm saying? And life, if I want to look at it as something outside of myself, like you even said that the universe is using us. Life is expressing to and through us. You know what I'm saying? But it just depends on what we tap. And I look at everything as far as a sexual experience. Even you use the word tap into. You hear this in like street talk. Yo, I tap that ass. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just tapping, but there's different parts of you that you tap and you exploit to some extent, right? So when I live in a home, there's certain people who have a passion for building homes. They have an eye. Like my sister's uh, husband is a contractor. I remember I was hanging out with him one time, and just by going into a place, he hasn't. They say, "Oh, I have an eye for that." Like he has an eye for being able
Ye
to tell what he's going to charge just by looking at things without writing it on paper. He already knows because he's got
yeah.
a trained eye for that, right? But I feel like intelligence is exploited by a passion of what you're doing. You get what I'm saying? This is why when it came down to the topic of money before, I was trying to get a little deeper in that, but we've already been on the talk for 3 hours and whatnot. So I'm like, we can save that for another talk, which this would be perfect for. But intelligence, for example, I remember that I've always been I know I have leadership qualities just by what I've been doing, ever since I started in playing in this game over here, this Matrix game. I've always been promoted. All my jobs have always been in the management field, but I've always excelled because of the passion I put into it. If I didn't like what I was doing, I probably wouldn't be as good at it as anybody else. And then
Yeah.
here's the thing: when it
Sure.
comes down to like this intelligence we talk about with like the cosmic intelligence that we get, right? Like, like why me? Like people say, why me?
Mm.
Well, spiritually, like what happened with me, I was very into the corporate world, left brained, but there was a burning desire inside of me. Because ever since I was in school, I remember this exact moment where they taught us how the pyramids of Giza were built. And for some reason, as a child, I wasn't buying it. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Something in me was talking to me. And I didn't know what it was until now. And I'm like, I know what it is when spirit's talking to you. Like, that's what I feel when spirit's talking to me. You know what I'm saying? It's like a hunch or
Yeah.
an inspiration to want to look further. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
But I never found any concrete answer because every time I would go research, I would get the same shit. Ramps, sleds, slaves, blah, blah, blah. It's bullshit. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But now I went back into the corporate world, kind of forgot about that, put it in the back burner, but it's still there. You get what I'm saying? It's still there. I remember at one point, uh, I ran a supplement industry where I ran like, the entire Northeast and even the Mexico market. I was in charge of a big, big territory. You know what I'm saying? I was making great money. But for some reason, this burning desire for curiosity started sparking in me again. And it happened like this. I'm sitting in my couch, and it happened to be where, when you get that little lazy feeling where you just want to chill out and relax? I kind of closed my eyes for a second, but in that instant, I started to see colors. I started to see colors everywhere, and I felt my body starting to float. And I was like, well, this is
Mhm.
interesting. Now something's happening, right? But I stayed with it because I was curious. But
Yeah.
now I started to feel my head go over here. And then, but now here's the problem with me. I've always been afraid of ghosts. I've always been afraid of paranormal. I had this big fear, which I'm not afraid of now. I had to overcome that. But growing up, my grandmother was a witch, and she did a lot. We're Puerto Rican. She did a lot of brujeria. I remember that there was always like, jars with like monkey heads in it, and in a certain
Right.
solution. She had like bones and sticks everywhere. She had like crazy shit. She was some real shit. She was into some deep ass shit that I to this day I still don't know. She did card readings for people, and I remember always a lot of people would just keep coming to her, but I was always very scared because of how she was doing things. She looked like she was going into trances and doing stuff, and I got scared.
Right.
And I don't know. And then I watched movies in Hollywood, and then I just got that in my psyche, and for some reason I was scared. But I always feel like that was passed on by something else, what we call ancestors. And I want to talk about history with you in a second because that's going to be an
Mhm.
interesting topic. But you know how a child is naturally not born, he's not born scared of anything, like the fear of spiders and all that shit. It's passed down by the fucking mom, it's passed down by, parents. Certain things that it's programmed even from the womb of the child. And even this, Dr. Bruce Lipton talked about, which I thought was super interesting. But there's a lot of meta-analysis in sciences that show that these babies get programmed from the birth, I mean, from the womb, even knowing the actual voice of the dad when they come out. You know what I'm saying? If the dad was present in the house. And
Yeah.
it's crazy how I look at this and I'm like, something within me was programmed that way. Because I want to know why I'm so afraid of like demons and ghosts. But then I grew up in such a religious household, and it was far from like what my grandma was doing, right? But she was very big believer in Jesus Christ. And I'm going to explain these experiences because it's going to tie into. I want to, you talked about a lot about your
Yeah.
experiences in your book, but I find that because everybody's got their own individual little unique way of how they came into this thing. I had a big fear, so I remember I started to go on YouTube and research third eye and whatnot. And they started to say that when you open your third eye, you see spirits. Oh, I swear, I closed that shit off, and I was like, "Yo, I'm not having nothing to do with this shit." And I complained. And you know what happened? I laid there, and then I was like this. Now I'm like looking around, like trying to take a deep breath. But as I closed my eyes, this shit started fucking tingling, and I'm like, "Oh my god, what the fuck is this shit?" I didn't want nothing to do with it, but
Yeah.
something within me again just kept. I was curious. I've always been a curious person, so I
Yeah.
slowly but surely started to dip my toes into different areas. I left religion, but I also noticed the change that when I went from rum religion to go out of like into spirituality, I went into it with a religious mindset. That's the mistake that a lot of people make, because spirituality is not a religion. Spirituality is just
Mm.
what you are, but it's what you observe outside of you. It's everything that you can look at. Because when you look at religion, if you're religious, you're truly into all religions. That's what I look at when I see religious, because everybody's talking about the same thing. Like I told you when we were talking about spirituality, manifestation, universe. Like manifestation is the miracles God created. Universe is God. Oh, the universe brought me these gifts, and it's another fancy word for God, the New Age word for God. So anyway, I went left hand path. I remember I started working now with demons, but I tiptoed into that because I was fucking paranoid. But I was very curious to see what the fuck came out of that. Then I went into the Rosicrucian order. I was there for a while, and I gained some really good insight on that. And I went into the occult. You know what I'm saying? Mysticism and what. But just stepping out of that, not any value in that. There's a lot of value in all that stuff. It's just that you either get very immersed in it and it becomes just another religion, and then you start to talk about it as if what you're into is the end all be all and everything else is shit. You get what I'm saying? When everything's pretty much telling you something, is just telling you in a different form, in a different way. You get what I'm saying? Like intelligence, I look at the same way. The plants have an intelligence. What is the human man supposed to do? Aaron, in your opinion, what do you think the human animal man is supposed to be doing?
I think um, from the investigation that I've had
Mm-hmm.
all these years, we are having this experience to discover what we are. And you see, I've had this thing, like
Mm-hmm.
you've had that thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't stop. I've never been able to stop. And I've traveled all around the world, for many, many years on my own, looking, seeking, investigating, and having all different sorts of paranormal experiences and then investigating them. And I'm like, well, look, I ask people, well, come on, what are your stories? You must have had some, for
Hmm.
God's sake. You're just forcing me into declaring my own genius. If nobody can come forward and say that you think a little bit like me, you've had any of the experiences I have, or you've solved any of the problems, nothing. I'm just speaking to sheep in a field,
Hmm.
and for God's sake, but when you look around, there's only a handful of these people, really. There's like Rupert Sheldrake, and then there's um, other people scattered around that have had their own sort of angle on things. And it's like Terence McKenna, have his own thoughts about psilocybin coming on a meteorite, and the food of the gods, and all different sorts of things. And you know, I feel that I've had a lot of cosmically inspired things, and that's what I've been trying to convey in the book. And I'm always like, am I going to get through to them? Am I going to get through to them? And in the end, now I'm kind of like, I've given up on that. I'll get through to the people who are receptible to getting through to,
But do you think
because like,
do you think everybody's supposed to be doing that? Like
no,
what you're
no,
doing? Right.
no,
So the reason I
no.
asked
Well,
this, yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Well, first and foremost, I believe that there's, and this is probably, well, I mean, even for me to say believe, from my experience, I have concluded that the spirits that are within the human form, they come from different constellations and planets.
Right.
And when we look into people like Rudolf Steiner, he speaks about the planets being sentient, some of them being evil, some of them being malevolent, and we start growing spiritually through these other dimensions. And he would speak about 5 bodies: the etheric body, the spiritual body, the astral body, the physical body, and then the emotional body. And so he was saying that we go through an evolution, and now we're at a certain stage in the evolution whereby we have a physical body as well as a spiritual body and an emotional body and all these things. We've got all these bodies. But then I look around and I go, well, not everybody. Not everybody. Um, and try as I may with a great deal of people, I could never penetrate them with anything remotely pertaining to the spiritual. They never had the ears for it. They never had the software for it. They just couldn't go there. Some people would lock down because they're terrified. Other people just say, "Oh, that's bollocks," or "That's load of shit." When you find someone, it's kind of like, they're hungry. They look at you. Their eyes don't blink. Their ears are open. They're inquisitive.
Yeah, yeah.
What did you say about that? No, no, you said this and you said that. What do you mean about that? They're hungry for it because they're one. They're a seer. They don't know it at that moment in time, but they've just started to gather up these little gems. And like you, by the time you've gathered up a load, then you start putting pieces together. You All the right books are placed, in your lap, all the right videos, and all the right people that you meet. And I'm convinced that there's no free will other than I can decide to turn around on the spot, put my hand in the air. But throughout all of our years, we're destined to travel a certain path. We may make small deviances here and there, but all the things that have got coming to us, it's like me being shot. That was just boom. It turned me around in an instant and it sent me on this path. I've
Hmm.
never looked back since. The death of my mother was another one. Boom. That, sent me on a trajectory. It made me the metal I am today.
Yeah.
And all these things that have happened to me, or I've been blessed with, I'm just thinking, I just feel that I'm so blessed. And in the book, I speak about loneliness, don't I? And
Hmm.
how I've never had a single minute's loneliness in all my life. And it wasn't until much later that now I realized what that was, because I was never alone. I always was with spirit. Spirit is always with me, and there's always stuff going on in my mind and I don't feel small and myopic. I feel as big as the universe. Why do I feel like the universe? Something just happened to me, and I write in the book. All of a sudden, basically overnight, I wake up and I'm the fucking universe. Something when you wake up, something changes. Your pineal gland goes pop, or something happens, and
Right.
and so all these things have happened, and I'm like, well, you know, there's a whole lot more here than meets the eye, but the vast majority of people can't see it. Then when we listen to Harry Potter, they talk about muggles. Well, muggles can't see spirits. And so I'm like, that's why I call them muggles.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know a spirit if it slapped them in the face.
Mhm.
And that's why we call being spiritually awoken. We're awoken to spirits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I asked this, I was gonna say, like, what is the human man like supposed to do? It's kind of like, we're a product of our environment. So I heard you in a couple of videos talk about, the environment and whatnot. But if you look at animals, just overall in general, because animals are very interesting creatures to look at. I've got a bunch of cats. I observe birds. I observe possums. I observe raccoons. I observe all kinds. Even skunks have came over here. Turtles.
Mhm.
But they know what to do in their environment. You know what I'm saying? And us being
Yeah.
part of the animal kingdom, we have no idea what we're supposed to do in our environment. Now, the thing is, there's different walks of life, but there's also different people in the environment. So let's say, for example, I got a contractor, like I told you about my sister's, husband. It's like him trying to talk to me to become a contractor and try to force it, and I'm like, I have no passion or desire or interest to even know about that. You get what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
why when it comes down to certain people who, let's say, if they watch your channel, right? But you feel like they may not be getting it. At one point, do you feel like they're just watching you for entertainment only? You know what I'm saying? Because again, it is very entertaining watching you. And at what point, like, because I was there too, where I was just very curious. I just wanted to keep learning, keep learning. But I think the key is not to stay in the wanting to keep learning, because it's not. You're never going to get to the point that you know everything, but you're going to get to the point where now you stop depending on learning things outside of you, and things just start coming to you, and you start to
Yeah.
learn that things now are coming from a space of knowing, because you're operating from a space as within, so without. So instead of looking
Yeah.
at it outside, because I heard you say that we're being dreamt by God. But every time I hear that, I still, like, if I was a person who is not privy to the game, I would still hear you saying that it's a God outside, as if a religious God in the sky is like dreaming us, or in the overall presence. Where in actuality, if I'm in a meditative state, I'm technically dreaming my reality right here as we speak. That's why they say, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. But when you say we're shards, can you differentiate? Because I remember I said that we are God, and somebody in your comment section said that I need to be a little more humble. That we can't say we're God, but we are shards. And the thing is, it's not one or the other. It can actually be both, but you would have to actually have a deep rooted understanding, or knowing, not an understanding, but an understanding as to what that even means. Can you tell me, if we are gods, how you can equate that we're shards but also God at the same time, if we're having this experience and I'm a mirror of you? But how could you equate those two things together? Like, if somebody says
Well,
that you're one or the other, or do you agree that we're both at the same time?
both at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
because the cosmos is a paradox, and everything in it is paradoxical. When we look at all the things that quantum physicists are telling us, they tell us about entanglement. Yeah, you familiar with that one?
Yep, of
Where they
course.
take
Of
the
course.
two. Okay, so therefore they're saying there's only one particle.
I go
Then
deep on
they
quantum science, by the way. We could talk deep
right.
in that. I love that topic.
y- Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful. And,
yeah,
and then they say that the fundamental premise of the cosmos is consciousness, and out of consciousness is the elements, the 92, 94 elements that constitute the cosmos, and they are thought into existence. But then when our physicists look for matter, they can't find any matter. So they're only thoughts. So that's why this thing is only a thought. We're only thinking about matter. Then in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. So, you know, I pull so many things together from a vast amount of experience. And I'm not just, like I say in my videos, I'm not just picking things out my arse, people. And when people come on and they're not happy with this and not happy with that, and then a couple of people saying, like, oh, he's finally lost the plot now. Well, I'm so far out of their consciousness that's what they think, because they're in one of these inner concentric circles of consciousness. They can't see outside.
Mhm.
But all the people in my concentric circle know that what I'm saying is perfectly feasible,
Mhm.
and I can point you in umpteen directions to PhDs who have said the same thing or similar thing. But I've actually had the experience. Now, in one of my deep meditations, I spoke about this in the book, I go into the quantum field and I see these little strings which are trillion times smaller than an atom. How do I see them? Well, I was the cosmos. I was the universe. I was pure awareness. And I saw that they were the fundamental premise of the universe. They were embryos before they were born. They're just giving it this until God thinks them into a reality. And then this is what quantum physics say. They say that these strings constitute the constituents for atoms. Atoms constitute the constituents of molecules and everything. So the quantum field is the fundamental premise of the cosmos. It's mind. It's all mind. And then we look into the um, philosophy of idealism,
Mhm.
and like Plato's ideas. It's all mind. We can't find any matter. I say to people, look, I don't, want to wear myself out, but everybody around me just seems to be stupid, because the whole world has been told that there's no physical matter here. And yet everybody has completely dismissed that. And I'm like, the only reason you've dismissed it because the operating system that we have, which is the ego, um, has to create the fiction to exist. Because if you take ego away, nothing exists. There is nothing. The only
Right.
thing that's left if you take ego away is human spirit.
Right. So
Mm.
matter, there is no matter, but the way I'm seeing it is I don't think matter, there is no matter, but what matters to the individual. So let's say we're seeing something, right? But the meaning we give it, depending on the energy and attention we put into that matter, materializes for that person in a way that they can say this is matter, but for somebody else, that's nothing. Oh, that's nothing. They're not, and this is just on a surface level that we've seen this because we do this on a light level when even when I'm talking to you and I tell you, hey, Aaron, man, put yourself in my shoes. Can you see what I'm saying when I blah, 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 blah? Let's say if I shoot you a few things, you kind of have a slight out of body experience to get in my shoes to try to experience what I'm saying only by the words I'm saying because words create mental pictures in your mind, right? You're already making matter in your mind as I'm talking to you. You get what I'm saying? That's why, as we talk to each other, right? Let's say if I'm talking to somebody else and I'm giving them a bunch of spew, something that they're not familiar with, it won't even make sense to them because they can't. When I say make sense, it's because their physical senses have never experienced it. So, how can they even make something out of that in their mind as a mental picture, as something that's matter or something concrete or tangible? You get what I'm saying? That's why I
Well,
say, like,
there's the
everything's
thing.
so, it's very tricky when we're using these words and languages and whatnot. Um, like matter is
Well,
just what matters to you and the meanings you give to it. You get what I'm saying?
oh, yeah, again, matter is just a concept, it's just
Mm-hmm.
a word.
Yeah.
And, in the one of the, edits in my chapter, um, when I'm looking into faith, I'm like, "Well, look, I asked, a dozen Christians, what's faith?" None of them could answer. And I'm like, "Well, look, you everything you believe depends on this concept of faith, and you can't tell me what it means. What about if I say to you, you don't really have it? You just imagine you're having it. Because if
Mhm.
you don't know what it is, how do you know you have it?
Hmm.
And then when you type in the dictionary, faith, what's it say? It leads on to belief. What does belief lead on to? Truth. What does truth lead on to? Proof. What does proof lead on to? Suggestion. What does suggestion lead on to? Theory. What does theory lead on? And all of a sudden, what's happened is that we've gone round in a circle and we're eating our own tail again because words only mean other words, other words, other words.
Mhm.
So after about half a dozen words
Very
from
good point.
faith, right? Meaning truth and reality and this, that, and the other, then all of a sudden it starts to get very, very vague, and then it just ends up back at idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, exactly. God is a fucking idea.
Mhm.
Everything's an idea. There is nothing here except ideas. And like what you just said now, you say, look, oh, Matt, I'm thinking this and I'm thinking that. You're doing what God did.
Mhm.
God's done that in his mind, which is the cosmos.
Right.
He's thought about mini us in his fucking brain. And if I now think about, a million different little mini me's running around in a little town, in a little village, on a little planet, I can do it. I can think about all that shit. And so, therefore, I'm a shard of God consciousness.
Mhm.
We all share in God. We're experiencing God because we all do little things that God never thought about.
Yeah. What is your definition of God? To be clear.
My definition of God is that all that there is will be and ever has been. It's the essence of existence, the essence of consciousness, the essence of awareness. Well, if we come down to the fundamental premise of which we as human beings can't go any further, we reach the bottom in awareness because we can never ever get rid of our awareness.
Mhm.
And even when we die, it appears that we can't get rid of that because so many testimonies of people being dead and their awareness wasn't gone.
Right.
And so, I don't, because there's no physical matter here, there's nothing to fucking die, there's nothing to decay.
Yeah.
It's just a dream.
I just can't see that. You see, this is why I asked you this question. I think various times because I can't see that definition as not being a religious answer, in my opinion. You get what I'm saying? Like the way I'm seeing God, it's like the essence of everything is what I am because it cannot exist unless I am actually collapsing it into existence. I'm talking to you right now and I'm putting attention and energy into our conversation, but it cannot happen unless I'm here. Like everything, as far as what we know of God, is just ideas. The same way everything else is just ideas, but just the way it's uh expressed by somebody, sometimes I can't help but to notice that it still kind of sounds like it's something outside of you. To me, God is of like once you become sovereign, you have more of an authority over your life. You get what I'm saying? Like you have more control of your situations because now you're more of an adult. You have an adult way of being, but you're still childlike. You could still have both. That's why I said you could be Shard, you could be God, because you can also be an adult, but you never stop being a child. You only stop being a child based on what society like tells you you're supposed to be like when you're an adult. But we still are all our children. In fact, we hid the child in the closet, and that's the problem. We stopped playing. Kids like to play. If we were more playful in this environment, we'd probably have a more harmonious life because that's what the key to life is. To me, the key to life is to play, but people take it too serious. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
When I see,
to play.
well, I'm gonna finish now. The
Okay.
authority part that I say has to just come down to how you, because I look at these words and I could categorize myself as a wordsmith only because I break things down from Latin to American. Only because I speak Spanish, I have a very good grasp on the difference between language. I can even hear a Portuguese or an Italian person speaking, and I can understand what they're saying because a lot of these words come from Latin. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you look at conduct yourself, como uno se conduce en la sociedad, how you conduct yourself in society, it's like the conductor of a train. But then you see the word train. Everything's a mental training, but everything we also see in conspiracy theories has to do with mind control. It all has to do with the mind because in Hermetic principles, the mind is all, the universe is mental. But You train at work. You're training a child as they get older. They're getting trained in school how to be an employee. It kind of looks like jail when they're in there. They come out, playground, have lunch. Even the way the halls look, it looks like jail. But the way they're structuring their mind as to how to operate in a society is very robotic, but it's just to be an employee. They don't teach you about money. They don't teach anybody anything like that. So let's say, for example, I decided, because I want to go into the topic of even being a man in this society. But God is literally the image of God, the image of man is being a man here. But that's the thing. I don't think men know how to be men. That's why I asked, what is a man supposed to do in this society, in this realm? It's not to go to work 9 to 5s, and bring home the money for. Let's say we want to go back to caveman days. Back in the day, we would have to leave the wife at home, go hunting, and bring the food home. And oh, yeah, that's the resources. Now it's evolved to I have to go to work, bring home the money and provide for the family. That's me being a man. Yes, in this society, that's good. So it's the way it's structured. But in actuality, the real meaning of being a man has a lot to do with actually knowing how to guide the feminine energy. But that has a lot to do with you understanding the Virgin Mary inside of you. You can't and this is the thing, even the Virgin Mary, the whole story of Jesus Christ. I had this realization, this little pondering just last night, where I'm like, how is it a Virgin Mary? What is the meaning of virgin? It's somebody who's never had sexual intercourse, the purity of somebody who's never been corrupted. But we see the word corrupted as if having sex is a form of corruption. You know what I'm saying? But then we say we bring life into the planet through sex. But there's a difference between having sex and making love. You get what I'm saying? And most of the time when a man is not truly a man, or he's not born of the father, he's still in his animalistic nature, or let's say in the fallen state, how we would call it. I would call that the negative side of energy. And negative energy is dark energy, which is feminine energy. That's why women are attractive. But a lot of the times, if they haven't overcame that, I don't even think they can have a partner and concretely have a woman to be there and never leave them. Like literally, you're one unit. Because since you became a whole unit, you attracted your partner, or you can guide your woman to be one unit. I had a very interesting conversation with my wife, and I'm almost done. I don't want to take too much time talking, because I want to hear your points too. But just basically talking to her. And sometimes she goes into a chaotic state. And I'm observing this. And I have one or two options. I can get emotional and get involved with it and like feed into that shit. You know what I'm saying? Or I can just step back and literally guide her out of that hell that she's in, because her daddy would basically be the negative side of energy. But it's not to say that it's bad. You see, the religious way of looking at things is that negative or darkness is bad, and it's not bad. It's just the other side of chemistry to the positive side. So you have feminine and masculine. You plug into a wall. That's how you light up an appliance. You plug a woman, right, by a dick, and that's how you birth an electrical. You have a reflection of light come out from that socket. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
like all that. I'm looking at everything as one. When I say as one, even like black people, white people, black people. I don't care if I'm seeing white men or black men. They're the negative side of energy. Even by how they conduct themselves. Look at how they're programmed. They're trying to fight for equal rights. Women now in these movements are trying to be equal to the man. Like you see how, but you don't see man trying to be equal to the woman. You don't see the white man trying to be equal to the black man. So that means that black is literally the feminine side of energy. But they're supposed to just do exactly how a woman is supposed to be a woman, do what a woman's supposed to do. A man's supposed to do what he's supposed to do here. But we're blinded by the way the system tells you you're supposed to do things, that they're trying to do all these movements. And that's how this illusion of separation keeps occurring. But it's not to say that it's bad. I don't care if somebody's dumb fucking sheep and retarded. Yeah, I don't care. They're needed there. I'm having an experience. I'm swimming in waters that I'm living my life in. In fact, we need the contractors to build houses so that I can have my space to reside in. You get what I'm saying? I don't expect that person to be in the same flow as me. I could never build a house. So he's got a certain level of intelligence that I don't possess. But I have a different form of intelligence that he doesn't possess. Somebody else who does gardening, somebody else who's a mechanic. They all got, but they're in their spaces doing what they're supposed to do. I look at them as just blood cells in a body that are doing what they're supposed to do. No different than the heart would never indoctrinate the liver on how to do things. But when you see it as a totality, though, let's say if you look at the cells in your gonads, well, one would think, well, they're just for reproductive purposes, for sex, right? But it's not really for sex because there's potential there. Matter of fact, that's where God is. God is at that bottom of the abyss, and your job is to raise that energy, which we call that Kundalini awakening, get it up to the upper realms and bring it up to heaven. So then that's where I look at man as potential, but not everybody is going to be in that space to say, oh, we're going to get it to where that blood cell in that sexual reproductive organ, all of them have to be in Christ consciousness. You know what I'm saying? That's how I kind of look at the totality of things. And being a man, that's what I think man lost. You know what I'm saying? Man lost how to be a man. And being a man it's the same way you're observing the sun. The sun is the masculine energy taking order over the chaos of the feminine energy of the planet called Mother Earth. You get what I'm saying? But us here, our job is to basically overcome humanity, look at above, and it's not even, there's no direction. I'm just saying for conversation purposes, because in space there's no direction. But here, if we want to look at things as far as order goes, because we can actually say, oh, a woman is under a man and she'll never be equal to a man, but that's not even a pecking order. All it is just because out of the woman comes man, the Virgin Mary, but we are all the Virgin Mary. Even men have the Virgin Mary in them. It's just how do you bring that, how do you bring yourself, that Christ, out of that Virgin Mary? It's not even a physical thing. It's just, that's just the same allegory, but we're always looking at Christ consciousness. That's why we're in a patriarchal system, because even the good side is masculine, the bad side would be feminine. But looking at it where it's just masculine, Christ consciousness is God, Jesus, but we don't look at well, who was Mary? You know what I'm saying? Why Mary's in there? Well, how about we find Mary in us then, and then we can find how we can birth that creation out of our system, which is basically the overall that we're observing outside of ourselves, as within, so without. I know I went a lot in there, so I'll let you get your points in on what you think of all that.
Okay, so just backing up there, then
Yeah, yeah.
to finish off my notion of God. When we look at quantum physics, they say that the cosmos is conscious. Well, if the fundamental premise of the cosmos is consciousness, then as far as I'm concerned, that's God. And when I speak about being shards of God and being dreamt by God, I mean the cosmos. Now, of course, none of us have any idea about the expanse of the cosmos, whether it is in actual fact infinite, because we can't conceive anything being infinite. We live finite existence, and everything on this earth, as far as we're concerned, is finite because it's all in constant flux. It's always moving, it's always changing, and so nothing stays the same. And so I couldn't even hypothesize about the expanse of the cosmos. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as my intuition tells me and my consciousness, it is consciousness. That's what's God. And out of consciousness, just like you see, all these things, they relate to each other. You can pick at so many
Yeah.
different realms. You pick out of quantum physics, you pick out the Bible. They mean the same freaking thing. They're
That's right.
starting from the same premise and they're ending in the same premise. And so, and the other thing is when we look at the construct of the world. I don't get et up, contrary to what people think in my videos, about anything that's going on here, because I'm absolutely confident that it's a dream and nobody dies. There's nothing to die. And so, but what we've done here, what God has dreamt up is human beings with a program, which is our ego. And the ego just means the it. It's a stupid word, but that's what Freud, it's just the it that he considered was the spark of humanity. But that was only one perspective from a psychologist. If you listen to a spiritualist, and they'll say, well, no, the ego isn't the spirit. It's like we were speaking about last week about the soul. Some people say the soul is the spark in the human being, but then I'll say, no, that's not right. Even consciousness is the spark. Consciousness is fundamental. Everything comes out of consciousness. And
That's right. That's why
so
if you knock somebody out, right? What's happening? There's nobody home.
yeah, all of a sudden it's gone. The consciousness is gone.
Their
And
consciousness is gone.
so and then for him, the whole world disappears, the cosmos disappears. You turn off consciousness and everything disappears. Why? Because consciousness is the electricity that brings the light in a light bulb. That's what, I use an analogy. You turn on the electricity to a light bulb, and all of a sudden the light then is beaming and it's sending out photons right across the
Mhm.
cosmos. forever. They're unstoppable, and so that's it. But you turn the light off, there's no consciousness anymore. The bulb's dead, and so. Um, when we look at the Bible and they're talking about God, well, I mean, just look at what's gone on there. Because patriarchs wrote all this stuff, then they considered God or chose God to be a male. Now, well, look, if there was a male, if he is a male, there has to be a female. So where's the female? All of a sudden, it falls down. It completely breaks down. It's not feasible. It's not rational. God, just say God is an essence. God is consciousness. God is spirit. Yeah, fine. Why say he's a man? And then he made us in his image. So he must be a man then also. Preposterous, ridiculous, nonsense, all of it. I mean, it starts off on such a rudimentary, basic, um limited expression to get to people with no education in these desert countries. Come on, people, wake up. It's the word of God. Well, I've read that Bible umpteen times and I've studied it long and hard, and if God wrote that piece of shit book, then he's as dumb as fuck. He's contradictory. He's a schizophrenic. He's evil. He's fucking everything because it's all in those stupid books. One contradiction after the other, after the other, after the other, and shit that just doesn't make any
Right.
sense. And then, you go onto the Quran, and that's just as bad. And then you go on to any other religion, and you just go, hang on, let's have a look at all these religions. Apparently there's about 2,000 religions, on the globe, and they all profess to have their own God. But human beings, intelligent human beings, please bear with me. You know, you've just been indoctrinated in your countries and in your cultures to believe that your fiction is the real fiction. For fuck's sake, if you were born in China, you'd be thinking that somebody else is a god. If you're born in Maori or something, then it's all circumstantial. Everything's circumstantial, and it's kind of like I shouldn't have to be saying this. I really shouldn't. I'm always coming at it from a bigger picture. I don't get involved in the minutiae, except when I'm just stirring up the pot, having a silly laugh, being an ego. I don't take any of this serious.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good
The,
point.
the
You know
re-
what? That's a great point. You see, right now we're getting into the details, but because we're both scientists, you get what I'm saying? We're both scientists, we're both priests, and we're both observers, right? But overall, I mean, shit, I go out, I do whatever the fuck I want. I mean, I eat pretty much a balanced meal, but I don't have a religion toward like, oh, it is what it is. It's just basically knowing how to manage yourself. I treat people how they treat me, and in kind they treat me. It's kind of like a symbiotic thing going on there, But I made a couple of videos on how we observe the reptilian side of ourselves based on how we conduct ourselves, but at the same time, in a very, very subtle level, if you're very aware, everything does mold and shape to your will. You get what I'm saying? If somebody's nice to us to some extent, but then yet I give them an attitude back, they may be inclined to give me an attitude after that, even though they were initially nice to me, right? Or if they're really
yeah,
fucked up to me and I act nice to them, it's kind of like it's not in them to be. I mean, it's just like you're neutralizing things, right? But overall, just as a chemistry goes, overall, my mind, my intentions, my true pure intentions behind it, I've noticed mold and shape to my will. You get what I'm saying? And it's not to say that I'm doing it for selfish gains. These are experiments I've done just overall. Like I see you did the rice experiment. Um, what were your I saw that you said that the one you said love to still molded or it didn't stay fresh. Can you talk about that real quick?
yeah. I mean, I did that for 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have one where I said I hate it because I'm an adherent to if you utter and think those things, then you will infest yourself. And so, if every day, 3 or 4 times a day, I'm saying, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I'm saying it to myself. I'm going to cause myself some illness or something. And so, there's no way I was going to get involved. I don't use the word hate. And so I just ignored one and I said I loved you to the other one. And bizarrely, the one I said I love you to, that one started to get contaminated after 2 months. And even on the base of it now, it's still pure white, but towards the top, it's a little bit pink. And the top part turned into a rice ball. It just molded itself into a ball. And I'm like, well, what is all that about? And a pink ball. And I'm like, well, I seem to remember I did a video about a pink football,
Mhm.
years ago. It was the law of attraction. I said, I'm going to do this law of attraction thing. I'm thinking, what can I think of? Okay, a pink football. What's the chances of finding a pink football? The next day, I'm cycling into town and I'm coming down a dual carriageway, and in the middle reservation, which is 6 feet wide of grass, there's a glistening pink football gleaming in the sun. I'm like, you can't make this stuff up, people.
Mhm.
And then I said, okay, well, could have been a fluke, whatever. So I said, well, look, I'm going to think of something else. Okay, right. We have one of our coins that went out of mint in 1970, and it's got 12 sides, it's brass, that one of those. Okay. And so forgot about it. I let it go. 2 weeks later, I'm out with Paul, and I said in the video initially, I said, "Oh, look, just to make it a little bit more clear, the person that gives me that coin, because they're going to give it me, I'm not going to find it. Someone's going to give it me, and they're going to place it in my left hand. Now I'm right-handed, and so why I would put my left hand out to receive something, I don't know. But that's I just thought that. 2 weeks later, we was at our favourite park, and we're having a coffee, and then Paul goes, "Hold your hand out." And I looked at him and I went, and I held my left hand out. He put in one of these coins. I looked at that coin there and I was speechless. I turned the coin over and I noticed that it was minted in the year of my birth. So not only did that coin come, not only was it placed in my left hand, it was minted in the year I was born. And how he came about it, he just went to a craft fair and there was lots of different stalls, and on one stall there was key rings, and there was one coin there on this key ring, and it was that coin. He went, fuck, that's the coin that Aaron's just been talking about. What do we make of this? It's bizarre.
Yeah. See, it's funny
And
how
so,
sometimes we can wield things into existence, and it just you start to realize that it's easy, and it feels like surreal sometimes, but shit, it really happens if we really put our strong intent to it.
well, when I was doing my business, I was manifesting everything, because what I was doing is it's kind of like I want a bigger van. It needs to be a white van,
Mhm.
and I'm going to have it with my motif on the side. And I used to stand at my bedroom window looking out at my rotten old van under the street light in the dark, and I was waiting, I was him
That-
about a month there. I went.
mhm.
Then I said, I'm going to get another one. I'm 2 vans outside here. In about 3 months, I had 2 vans. Fuck, I'm going to get a bit, and I'm going to get two. And they just went on. I manifested everything.
Yeah. Hey,
And,
let me
the
ask you. Oh, good. My bad. I didn't thought you were
no, no,
done.
you go, you go.
Yeah, what I was gonna ask you is what made you want to do that experiment though, or what did you think when you heard about that experiment, like the Dr. Emoto experiment? Because I actually had that interesting uh, curiosity. You know what I'm saying? As I was gardening, but what made you get into that to begin with?
Well, because in many of my videos over the years, myth busted. I never took anything. I had to try it for myself, because if we go through our life believing, and I just believed in, then I'm believing in a
Right,
fallacy. Not true to me. I don't discount that rice experiment works in a certain way. But what I said in that video when I'm speaking about it is that we have to take into consideration the person's intention and their belief, because it's the belief, like
right,
the biologist, Oh, Bruce Lipton, like he says, it's environment. You put it into the environment, but also then when scientists are doing their research, it's imperative that they don't have a bias or they're not seeking for something
Right.
because 90% of the time they are going to find only what they are looking for.
Well,
And so,
how do you know? I mean, you just said you were trying to you were into busting, but the thing is, the
yeah,
only reason I asked is how do you know that the one that you said love to didn't rot only because your original intent and you may not have realized it may have been to myth bust that experiment. You know what I'm saying? The reason I say this because sometimes people do things. They think they have an intent, but they actually have an ulterior motive. They have a different intent that they were actually asleep to. So it could have been that your original intent was to myth bust. And the reason I believe in the Dr. Emoto experiment is because when it happens to me, I do it when I'm gardening. There's certain plants I put so much attention to, and then some I ignore, and they end up growing more. But why? Because the environment, in and of itself, is love. You get what I'm saying? So sometimes
yeah,
me wanting that plant to thrive so much more, it's my ego that wants it to strive more, and I give it something called the evil eye. I learned this from my grandmother, who was a witch as well, where when you want something to grow so much, it's coming from ego and not really a spirit, and it's just you're giving it something called the evil eye. That's why they call.
yeah,
So that's why I say,
yeah.
do you think that maybe that rice experiment was because your original intent was to myth bust, but you were asleep
Very
to it?
possibly.
Yeah.
Very possibly is a very good point
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, well, look, I'm not believing anything. I think I'm going to be open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to, be convincing when I say I love it. I'm going to hold it close to my heart so it feels the vibration, and I'm going to feel love.
Yeah.
Go through all that. But then you see that there is something which is subliminal, and the subliminal may have been that I didn't believe in it.
Right.
And it is belief which creates our reality.
That's right.
And so then that's why I went on, ranting about you people, oh, it could have been contaminated. Oh, the jar could have been dirty. Oh, come on. Surely you can come up with better questions than that, having watched my videos for 5 or 10 fucking
Yeah.
years. What about what we believe? What about environment? I've mentioned Bruce Lipton in the environment, 50 times in the last 5 fucking months,
Right.
and not one of you has said, well, maybe your environment's got something to do with it. And then I start speaking about when I was in Africa in a very negative environment, I got infested. My ego was like this. I was short tempered. I was horrible. And, then I attracted negative energy, which one night shot me in my bed.
Yeah.
Just a random guy. It wasn't anything to do with anything I've been doing. It was just like, there's a white man live there. He's
Mm-hmm.
probably got some money. I'm going to go and get it. And so, but I created that from the universe because I was manufacturing negative energy.
That's right. You see, that's the whole thing. And man should have control of his emotions to some extent. It's so funny you bring that up because I got into an argument with my girl last night, but I also realized that I definitely fed a lot into that shit. You get what I'm saying? That's why I said
Mm,
I stepped out of it and I had to have a talk with her this morning. But you know what's funny though? Um, I was driving today and I got a fucking speeding ticket. And the thing is, I'm a pretty aggressive driver. And normally I go a lot faster than I was doing today. But today I was going a lot slower than I normally do, and I got pulled over for speeding.
right.
But I also noticed that it doesn't have to happen right away. But in actuality, I went to sleep that way. We didn't talk. And we don't fight often. But when we fight, I mean, we usually make up the same day. But I noticed that I went to bed angry with her. We said a lot of mean things to each other, never cursing or disrespecting. We don't go ever to the point where we start saying bad words to each other, but we were pretty aggressive with how we were talking. And I didn't feel good about it. Neither did her. Um, but that happened afterwards. And I stepped back and I said, I look at everything. I'm not a victim to shit. I'm not going to fucking cry about it. But I know I brought that onto myself just from the energy I was carrying. I woke up in a fucked up mood. I started to drive. And normally I'm the type of driver that's very, very aware of everything only because I'm aggressive. Today, I started to think about the shit I did with her yesterday. And boom, it happened where I didn't even see the car. I didn't even see him behind me until he started to go whoop, whoop. And I thought a lot about that. And I'm like, fuck. It's like it. See, that's a synchronistic effect. People think that synchronicities just happen when good things happen. No, they happen when it's fucked up too. That was a synchronistic effect for me. I was
Yeah.
in a fucked up flow. and a fucked up situation happened to me where now I gotta fucking go to court and see how much I gotta pay the city for fucking ticket, for speeding, which could potentially, put a blemish on my insurance. And yeah, it's just something that drains, from the system takes from you only because you let the emotion take over. You became an emotional creature when in actuality and I did it this morning. That's why I told you being a man is, and I guided her out of that hell. I had that talk with her, but she had, and I also told her, I'm like, did you realize what I said? And she's like, you know what? It makes a lot of sense. But I also told her, if it made sense to you, that means that you received the information, you grasp it as if, like a sponge. It was something that resonated with you, because I wasn't teaching her anything. The important thing is guiding a woman has a lot to do with her realizing that when you talk to her, it's something that she already knows. That's why I said, you see, if it made sense to you and you're like, oh shit, you're right. It's not, I'm not teaching her anything. She has that realization because she knows that shit already. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference
Yeah,
between knowing, oh, did he teach me something, or did he tell me something I already know and I realized it now? That's what I mean by it. That's why I think she appreciates me so much. It's because of that. Because we've had many situations like that, but it's not to say that, because I'm gonna tell you right now, a man could get his ego inflated and say, oh yeah, But bro, my girl has been a fucking, she grounds me. You know what I'm saying? Because in actuality, we want to look at how men are, and going back outside hunting. Look, I can go out and search for lights. Lights is fucking. You can get lost in lights. At the end of the day, we can look at her as the negative energy. She grounds that shit down for me. She has done that before, and I've realized it. And then that level of appreciation is something that when you give that out, oh, you get a shit. Because I believe big in the law of reciprocity, but it doesn't have to be where you're thinking about it. It has to happen where it's in a flow, but it's just happening. It's not like, like when you see a poor person or somebody who needs something and you give it to them, but you're not thinking about it. That's when you know it's authentic. But when you have to overthink it, you know it's coming from ego. You're like selling it now. Like I had this debate with this vegan YouTuber, and we were talking about. I got into. There's a lot of shit he couldn't roll with me with because he's so fucking like left brain that he could not fucking keep up with me. And I told him, I was like, well, if I told him I don't intentionally want to go eat meat, but let's say if I go to my mom's house and she prepares a dish for me and it's got meat in it, chicken, why would I not eat it? My mom is not thinking of anything else but serving me a dish with a lot of love. You get what I'm saying? But the fact that she's not thinking about it, right? That's when you know it's coming from authentic love. And like I told you, love is a building frequency. My mom's intention was to give me good hospitality in the house, treat me good, make me feel good, so that when it's like she loves me, so she
and
wants to
to
make me
give
feel
her
good.
boy a healthy meal to make him big and strong.
That's right.
Which
But
she
that it could be the
always
most
does.
unhealthiest meal, but the fact that she prepared it with love, oh, it's the healthiest meal now. Because look, you got all these
Yeah.
vegans, they got all these fucking GMO fucking made foods in the interest of a profit. Hey, my mom's cooked meal over these GMO fucking burgers. I mean, which one's going to be healthier for me? You know what I'm saying? There's always a frequency aside from like what you're eating chemically that has got a micro and macro wheel of nutrients. Because even like nutritional value is bullshit. The moment you cook your food, that nutritional value, you think you're paying for what you get, and it's not. You already denature and devalue the protein and nutritional value in there once you apply heat to it, right? Unless you're eating something raw. But at the end of the day, my mom's meal, right, neutralized whatever imbalance, even the animal that died in the slaughterhouse. So much love. And then me, of course, the whole concept of prayer came in where I'm transmuting the energy before I eat, but it's not a God outside of me blessing my food. I'm transmuting the energy because you can't kill energy. You can only transfer, transmute. You put it in you, and you redefine the meaning of everything you just did right there in real time. You get what I'm saying? We have this much power, but people don't
Yeah.
realize that. Even with situations in the world, they notice how the news and the algorithm wants to pump war happening. All these things happening outside in the world. I mean, shit. I can actually be aware that it's happening, but how much attention and energy? I mean, look, even technology will work for you where if you click on one of those videos, oh, now the algorithm will start pumping even more videos for you, right? It's like, it's a
Mhm.
fucker. You got to be aware of even the choices you make. Algorithms could work in your favor, but in real time, your choices overall on an impact, we talk about entanglements, they start to present themselves in the same exact way, just like algorithms, only by the choice you made. You get what I'm saying? The
Yeah.
attention and decision you took toward that specific moment in time you decided to purchase or pay attention to something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so, I mean, I think this thing, it's like I say, it's all mind. And once we realize that it's mind, then you realize that it's malleable
that's
because
right.
there's nothing set in concrete here. And
Can I pause it and then I'm gonna hit play again so that it doesn't get too long on my end? You can keep playing.
yeah,
Obviously, it doesn't affect you, but I'm just
no,
gonna pause real quick.